Let me start with a hard truth most people don't like to hear. Laziness is not a personality trait, it is a decision. And every time you make that decision, you are quietly voting against the future you say you want. Dreams don't die from failure. They die from delay. They die from excuses. They die from waiting for one day. If you don't kill laziness early, it doesn't just slow you down. It slowly buries your potential while you're still breathing. And the most dangerous part, laziness feels comfortable, so it convinces you that nothing is wrong. Here's the hook you need to hear. Your dream is expensive and laziness is charging you interest every single day. Every hour you waste today becomes a year you'll regret tomorrow. You don't get paid in life by what you intend to do. You get paid by what you execute. Success does not respond to motivation, it responds to movement. The moment you move, clarity shows up. The moment you act, confidence follows. Waiting to feel ready is just laziness wearing a nice suit. Most people say they want more money, more freedom, more purpose, but they are unwilling to give up comfort. Comfort is the enemy of growth. Comfort is the silent assassin of ambition. If you keep choosing what's easy now, life will become hard later. But if you choose what's hard now, life becomes easy later. That's not motivation, that's a law. Discipline is simply choosing what you want most over what you want now. Let me challenge you with this. The size of your results is directly connected to the speed of your obedience. When you know what to do and you don't do it, that's laziness. When you keep postponing action, that's laziness. When you scroll, sleep, and distract yourself instead of building, that's laziness. And laziness doesn't just waste time, it weakens self-trust. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you train your mind not to believe in you. That's why some people don't lack talent, they lack follow-through. Here's another truth most won't tell you. God, opportunity, and success reward motion, not intention. You don't have to feel inspired to be disciplined. You don't have to feel confident to take action. You don't have to feel ready to start. Action creates emotion, not the other way around. The people you admire didn't wait for perfect conditions. They worked with imperfect discipline. They showed up when it was boring, uncomfortable, and inconvenient. That's where greatness is built, quietly, consistently, and without applause. If you don't control your schedule, your distractions will. If you don't design your day, laziness will design it for you. And laziness always designs a life of average results. Dreams demand structure. Success demands standards. Winners don't ask, how do I feel today? They ask, what must be done today? That mindset alone separates the top 1% from everyone else. Let me be clear, laziness doesn't announce itself, it whispers. It says, do it tomorrow. It says, you deserve a break. It says, one more video, one more hour. And before you know it, years have passed, and your dream is still a thought instead of a reality. Regret is heavier than discipline. Pain of action is temporary. Pain of inaction lasts a lifetime. Laziness is not a condition you are born with, and it is not something you inherit from circumstances, people, or bad luck. Laziness is a decision you rehearse daily, often without realizing it. The moment you delay what you already know you should do, you are not lacking ability. You are exercising a choice. And here is the hook most people miss. Every choice you make today is training you for the life you will live tomorrow. When you consistently choose comfort, your future becomes uncomfortable. When you consistently choose discipline, your future becomes powerful. This is not about motivation, this is about responsibility. Successful people don't have more time, more energy, or fewer problems. They simply decided that excuses would no longer be acceptable currency in their lives. Most people misunderstand laziness because it doesn't look like doing nothing. Laziness often looks like planning without execution, learning without application, and talking without action. It hides behind phrases like, I'm getting ready, I'm waiting for the right time, or I just need more information. The truth is, clarity comes after action, not before it. Waiting to feel ready is often laziness pretending to be wisdom. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to start, because delay weakens self-trust. Each time you postpone action, you send a message to your mind that your word does not matter. Over time, that internal mistrust becomes more damaging than any external obstacle. Here's a powerful truth. Laziness is reinforced by repetition. Just like discipline, the brain adapts to what you practice. If you practice procrastination, your mind becomes skilled at avoidance. If you practice execution, your mind becomes wired for progress. This is why some people seem naturally driven. They're not driven by personality, they are driven by habit. They made a decision early on that action would be non-negotiable. They don't debate with themselves when it's time to work. They move even when they don't feel like it, especially when they don't feel like it. Another hook you need to hear is this. Feelings are unreliable leaders. If you let emotions dictate your actions, laziness will always win because comfort feels better in the moment. Discipline is acting in alignment with your goals, not your moods. The highest performers in any field understand this principle deeply. They don't ask, do I feel motivated today? They ask, what does my standard require today? Standards remove the need for motivation. When action becomes a standard, laziness has nowhere to live. Laziness also grows when accountability is absent. When no one is checking you, laziness checks in. That's why personal integrity is critical. What you do when no one is watching defines who you are becoming. The disciplined individual does not need supervision. They are self-governed. They understand that every small act of follow-through compounds into confidence, competence, and credibility. On the other hand, every small act of laziness compounds into doubt, inconsistency, and regret. Here is the uncomfortable but necessary reality. Blaming circumstances is one of the most refined forms of laziness. It shifts responsibility away from where power actually exists. You may not control your starting point, but you absolutely control your response. The moment you accept full responsibility for your actions, laziness begins to lose its grip. Responsibility is empowering because it restores your authority over your future. Laziness survives on negotiation. Discipline operates on decision. Once you decide that action is no longer optional, your behavior starts to align automatically. You stop arguing with yourself. You stop waiting for permission. You stop asking for motivation. You move, and movement creates momentum. Momentum creates belief. Belief creates results. That is how ordinary people transform into high performers, not by personality change, but by choice, repeated daily. Dreams rarely collapse in one dramatic moment. They don't usually end because of a single failure, a bold risk gone wrong, or an unexpected obstacle. Most dreams die quietly, slowly, and almost invisibly through delay. That is the danger most people underestimate. Failure is loud, it teaches, corrects, and often forces growth. Delay is silent. It feels harmless, even reasonable, but it is the most efficient killer of potential. The hook you need to hear is this: what you delay today will demand a higher price tomorrow, and most people cannot afford the cost of waiting. Delay disguises itself as patience, preparation, and perfection. It whispers that timing matters more than action, that one more plan, one more course, or one more year will somehow make the path clearer. But clarity is not a reward for waiting. It is a reward for moving. Every dream requires momentum, and momentum cannot be generated while standing still. The longer you wait to begin, the more intimidating the starting point becomes. What once felt exciting slowly turns into something heavy, overwhelming, and emotionally distant. Here is a truth most people avoid. Delay erodes belief. In the beginning, your dream feels alive because you talk about it, think about it, and imagine the result. But belief is sustained by progress, not imagination. When action is missing, belief weakens. Confidence does not disappear overnight. It fades through repeated inaction. Each postponed step sends a signal to your mind that the dream is optional, not essential. Over time, that signal becomes a conviction, and once a dream is no longer essential, it is already dying. Failure, on the other hand, often strengthens clarity. When you fail, you receive feedback. You learn what works and what doesn't. You develop resilience, skill, and emotional toughness. Delay offers none of these benefits. It produces no lessons, no growth, and no refinement, only regret. That is why people who fail while taking action often succeed later, while people who wait rarely do. Movement keeps the dream alive, even when the results are imperfect. Another powerful hook is this: time does not pause for unpursued dreams. Life keeps moving forward regardless of your readiness. Responsibilities increase, distractions multiply, and comfort zones grow stronger. What was once easy to start becomes harder to fit into your life. Delay gives fear more time to speak, doubt more space to grow, and excuses more credibility. Eventually, the dream doesn't feel impossible because of lack of ability, but because of lack of urgency. Delay also creates emotional distance between you and your future self. When you consistently postpone action, your future self begins to feel like a stranger instead of a responsibility. You stop asking, what can I build? And start asking, what can I manage? That shift is subtle but dangerous. It marks the moment when survival replaces vision. Dreams require urgency because urgency creates priority. Without priority, dreams are demoted to wishes. The painful irony is that many people delay because they fear failing, yet delay guarantees a deeper form of failure. At least failure gives you experience. Delay gives you nothing but lost time. And time is the only resource you cannot recover, replace, or negotiate with. Every day of delay silently compounds into years of missed opportunity. The regret that comes from not trying is far heavier than the disappointment that comes from trying and failing. There's also a psychological cost to delay that few acknowledge. When you repeatedly delay action, you train your identity to see yourself as someone who starts later, not someone who finishes. Identity shapes behavior. Once you accept delay as normal, it becomes automatic. Breaking that pattern later requires far more effort than starting early ever would have. Dreams don't ask for perfection, they ask for participation. They don't require certainty, they require courage. The moment you act, even imperfectly, you interrupt the slow death caused by delay. Action revives belief, restores urgency, and reconnects you to the future you once envisioned. Delay steals silently, but action speaks loudly. And dreams listen. Freedom is often misunderstood because people confuse it with ease. They believe freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want, without restriction. In reality, that definition leads to chaos, dependency, and limitation. True freedom is not the absence of structure. It is the result of structure applied consistently over time. Discipline is not designed to restrict your life. It is designed to expand it. The hook most people miss is this: the discipline you avoid today becomes the limitatio you live with tomorrow. Every area of life operates under this principle. Financial freedom is created by disciplined spending, saving, and investing. Physical freedom is created by disciplined movement, nutrition, and rest. Mental freedom is created by disciplined thinking and emotional control. There is no form of lasting freedom that does not pass through the doorway of discipline. When discipline is absent, external forces step in to impose control. Debt controls you, health issues control you, deadlines control you, and other people's expectations control you. Discipline is how you reclaim authority over your time, energy, and direction. Here is a powerful hook. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. Every undisciplined decision feels good in the moment, but it quietly steals from your future. Every disciplined decision may feel uncomfortable at first, but it deposits into a future account that eventually pays dividends. The difference between the life people admire and the life people tolerate is often nothing more than a consistent pattern of disciplined choices made early and maintained quietly. Many people resist discipline because they associate it with punishment or deprivation. In truth, discipline is alignment. It aligns your daily actions with your long-term vision. When your actions and goals are misaligned, internal conflict grows. You feel frustrated, unfulfilled, and stuck, not because you lack opportunity, but because your behavior contradicts your ambition. Discipline removes that conflict. It creates clarity because you know that each day, regardless of emotion, you are moving in the right direction. Another critical truth is that discipline reduces decision fatigue. When you live without discipline, every day becomes a series of negotiations with yourself. Should I work or rest? Should I focus or distract myself? That constant internal debate drains energy and strengthens laziness. Discipline eliminates negotiation. When behavior becomes habitual, action becomes automatic. You no longer rely on motivation, which is unpredictable and inconsistent. You rely on systems, which are stable and reliable. This is why high performers appear calm under pressure. They are not deciding what to do, they are executing what they already decided long ago. Discipline also creates confidence. Confidence is not built through affirmation, it is built through evidence. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your self-trust grows stronger. Over time, that self-trust becomes unshakable belief. This is the freedom people truly desire, the freedom of knowing you can rely on yourself. When you trust yourself, fear loses its power, doubt loses its voice, and external opinions lose their control. There is also a compounding effect to discipline that most people underestimate. Small disciplined actions, repeated daily, accumulate into massive transformation. What seems insignificant today becomes extraordinary over time. The problem is that the rewards of discipline are delayed, while the rewards of comfort are immediate. Most people choose immediate comfort and sacrifice long-term freedom. Those who understand the law of discipline are willing to delay gratification because they see beyond the moment. The ultimate freedom is not having unlimited options, it is having the power to choose the best option consistently. Discipline gives you that power. It strengthens your ability to act in alignment with your values, not your impulses. Over time, discipline removes stress because your life becomes predictable in the best way. You know that progress is inevitable. That is why discipline is not a burden, it is a privilege. It is the bridge between where you are and the freedom you claim to want. Most people spend their lives waiting for confidence to arrive before they take action, not realizing that confidence is not a prerequisite for movement, but a product of it. This misunderstanding keeps millionaires stuck in hesitation, overthinking, and self-doubt. The powerful hook is this: confidence does not come from believing in yourself, it comes from proving yourself to yourself. You don't wake up one day suddenly confident. You earn confidence through repeated action, even when fear is present. Confidence is built through evidence, not emotion. Every time you complete a task, face a challenge, or take a step forward despite discomfort, you collect proof that you are capable. On the other hand, every time you wait, avoid, or retreat, you collect evidence that reinforces doubt. Over time, these small moments shape your self-image. People who appear confident are not fearless, they are familiar with action. They have acted enough times to trust their ability to respond, adapt, and recover. Here is another truth that changes everything. Clarity follows action, not the other way around. Many people say they lack confidence because they are unsure of the outcome, but certainty is not required to begin. The moment you act, feedback appears. Feedback creates learning, learning creates competence, and competence creates confidence. This sequence cannot be reversed. Waiting for confidence before acting is like waiting for strength before lifting weights. It defies the process. Fear plays a critical role in this dynamic. Fear is not a stop sign. It is a signal that growth is nearby. The absence of fear often means the absence of challenge. High performers understand this and act anyway. They do not eliminate fear, they move with it. Each time you act in the presence of fear, fear loses credibility. It no longer controls your decisions because your experience has shown you that discomfort is survivable and temporary. Another hook worth remembering is that inaction is more damaging to confidence than failure. Failure, while uncomfortable, often strengthens belief because it provides information and resilience. Inaction, however, creates imagined fears that grow larger over time. When you don't act, your mind fills the gap with worst-case scenarios. These imagined outcomes feel real, even though they have no evidence. Action collapses imagination into reality, and reality is almost always more manageable than fear suggests. Confidence also grows through momentum. The first step is usually the hardest because it breaks inertia. Once momentum begins, each action becomes easier than the last. This is why successful people focus on starting, not finishing. They understand that progress creates energy. Energy creates motivation. Motivation sustains effort. The cycle begins with action, not inspiration. There is also an identity shift that occurs when action becomes habitual. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. Identity is powerful because behavior follows identity. When you act consistently, your mind updates its self-concept. You begin to expect follow-through from yourself. That expectation alone changes how you approach challenges, opportunities, and setbacks. Many people attempt to build confidence through affirmations, visualization, and positive thinking. While these tools have value, they are incomplete without action. Words without evidence eventually lose meaning. The mind believes behavior more than statements. When your actions align with your goals, confidence becomes a natural byproduct, not a forced mindset. The most reliable way to build confidence is to do the thing you are avoiding. Start before you feel ready. Move before you feel certain. Act before you feel confident. Each step forward, no matter how small, rewires your self-belief. Over time, action transforms hesitation into assurance and potential into performance. Comfort is one of the most dangerous forces in a person's life because it does not look like a threat. It feels safe, familiar, and justified. Yet comfort quietly erodes ambition and slowly disconnects people from their potential. The powerful hook is this: comfort never announces the end of your growth. It gently convinces you that growth is no longer necessary. When comfort becomes the goal, progress becomes optional, and greatness becomes unreachable. The comfort zone is seductive because it rewards you immediately. It allows you to avoid risk, effort, and uncertainty while giving you a false sense of security. But that security is fragile. The world does not stop changing simply because you choose to stay comfortable. Skills become outdated, opportunities pass unnoticed, and resilience weakens. What once felt safe eventually becomes a limitation. Comfort does not protect you from struggle. It postpones it and often multiplies its impact later. Here's a critical truth. Everything that expands your life exists outside your comfort zone. Growth demands challenge. Strength demands resistance. Confidence demands exposure. Without pressure, potential remains dormant. The very discomfort people avoid is the environment where capability is developed. High performers understand that discomfort is not a sign of failure, it is evidence of progress. They intentionally place themselves in situations that stretch them because they know that comfort produces stagnation, not mastery. Another hook worth remembering is that comfort trains you to avoid pain, not to pursue purpose. When decisions are made based on ease, long-term vision is sacrificed for short-term relief. This is how people slowly drift away from the life they once imagined. They don't quit on their dreams all at once, they choose comfort one day at a time. Eventually, the dream fades, replaced by routines that feel safe but unfulfilling. Comfort also weakens discipline. When life feels easy, urgency disappears. Without urgency, standards drop. When standards drop, effort becomes inconsistent. Over time, inconsistency becomes identity. People begin to see themselves as someone who settles rather than strives. This identity shift is subtle but destructive because it lowers expectations of what is possible. The greatest tragedy is not failing. It is never demanding more from yourself in the first place. There is also a hidden cost to comfort that many overlook. It amplifies fear. The longer you remain comfortable, the more intimidating discomfort becomes. Challenges that once seemed manageable start to feel overwhelming. This creates a cycle where comfort strengthens fear and fear reinforces comfort. Breaking this cycle requires deliberate action. The first step out of comfort is rarely pleasant, but it is always empowering those who achieve extraordinary results. Develop a different relationship with discomfort. They don't seek pain for its own sake, but they understand its value. Discomfort becomes a signal that they are learning, growing, and evolving. Instead of asking, how can I avoid this? They ask, what is this teaching me? This mindset transforms pressure into progress and resistance into resilience. The paradox of comfort is that avoiding temporary discomfort often leads to permanent dissatisfaction. A life built on ease eventually becomes heavy with regret, boredom, and unrealized potential. A life built on challenge becomes lighter over time because capability increases and confidence strengthens. What once felt difficult becomes normal, and what once felt impossible becomes achievable. Stepping outside comfort is not about reckless risk, it is about intentional growth. It is about choosing actions that align with who you want to become, not just how you want to feel. Every time you choose effort over ease, you expand your capacity. Every time you choose challenge over convenience, you reinforce your potential. Comfort may feel good today, but growth is what gives life meaning tomorrow. Your future is not shaped by the goals you set once in a while, but by the habits you practice every single day. Goals provide direction, but habits determine movement. This is the hook most people overlook. You do not rise to the level of your dreams. You sink to the level of your systems. What you repeatedly do, especially when no one is watching, is quietly designing the life you will eventually live. Big results are never the product of big decisions made occasionally. They are the result of small behaviors repeated consistently. Habits operate below conscious effort. Once established, they guide your actions automatically, which is why they are so powerful. You don't have to think about them, you simply act. This can work for you or against you. Positive habits compound into progress, while negative habits compound into limitation. The danger is that habits rarely feel significant in the moment. Skipping one workout, delaying one task, or wasting 1 hour seems harmless. But habits are not measured daily, they are measured eventually. Over time, the accumulation becomes unavoidable. Another powerful hook is this: your habits are constantly voting for the person you are becoming. Every disciplined habit is a vote for growth, strength, and success. Every undisciplined habit is a vote for stagnation, weakness, and regret. Identity is not declared, it is demonstrated. When your daily actions align with your desired identity, change becomes inevitable. When they don't, frustration becomes permanent. Many people attempt to change their future by setting new goals without changing their habits. This creates a cycle of temporary motivation followed by disappointment. Motivation fades because it is emotional. Habits endure because they are structural. When habits support your goals, progress feels natural. When they don't, progress feels forced. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is usually not knowledge, it is consistency. Habits also shape your standards. What you do repeatedly becomes what you accept as normal. If procrastination is habitual, delay feels acceptable. If discipline is habitual, excellence feels expected. Standards determine behavior more reliably than desire. You may want success, but your habits decide whether that desire has any power. This is why two people can want the same outcome and achieve completely different results. Their habits are different. There is also a compounding confidence effect tied to habits. Every time you follow through on a habit, you strengthen self-trust. Self-trust is the foundation of confidence. When you trust yourself, you stop doubting your ability to execute. This creates momentum that spills into every area of life. Conversely, broken habits weaken self-belief and reinforce hesitation. Confidence is not built in moments of inspiration, it is built in moments of consistency. Another critical truth is that habits shape your environment, and your environment reinforces your habits. The routines you follow determine the people you interact with, the information you consume, and the opportunities you notice. Over time, your environment begins to reflect your habits, either supporting growth or reinforcing limitation. Changing habits is not just about willpower, it is about intentionally designing systems that make the right actions easier and the wrong actions harder. Habits do not require perfection, they require commitment. Missing once does not destroy progress, but quitting does. The goal is not intensity, but continuity. Small actions done daily outperform extreme actions done occasionally. This is why sustainable success looks boring from the outside. It is built on repetition, patience, and discipline long before it is rewarded with recognition. Your future self is being created by what you choose to repeat today. Every habit you maintain is shaping your trajectory, whether you acknowledge it or not. When you align your daily habits with your long-term vision, success stops being a hope and starts becoming a process. So here's the closing challenge. Kill laziness before it kills your dreams. Decide that your future matters more than your comfort. Decide. That your goals deserve your best energy, not your leftover time. Get up earlier, move faster, execute quicker. Discipline yourself daily because the life you want is on the other side of the work you've been avoiding. Remember this, you don't rise to the level of your dreams, you fall to the level of your habits. Change your habits and your life will change. Kill laziness today or it will quietly kill the future you keep praying for.